"You were taking pictures of me without permission." The accusation echoed through the luxury hotel lobby like a gunshot. But when security pulled up the camera roll on the billionaire's phone, what they found would shatter everything she thought she knew about that moment and change both their lives forever. What started as a heated confrontation would spiral into a revelation so shocking that it would make her question every assumption she'd ever made about wealth, intention, and the mysterious man in the white suit. And just when she thought the truth couldn't get more complicated, a handwritten letter would surface that would bring her to tears, revealing a connection neither of them saw coming. If you're curious how a single misunderstanding can turn into the most unexpected love story, keep watching, because what happens next will absolutely blow your mind. The afternoon sun blazed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grandeur Hotel in downtown Chicago, casting golden rectangles across the marble floor. It was one of those perfect September days where the breeze off Lake Michigan carried just enough coolness to remind you that fall was approaching, but the warmth still lingered like a promise. Darius Kincaid Monroe, known to most simply as Big Boss, Darius stood near the concierge desk, his white linen suit immaculate despite the heat outside. His white fedora sat at a perfect angle, and his brown leather shoes gleamed under the chandelier light. At 62, he carried himself with the kind of confidence that didn't need to announce itself. People simply moved out of his way, not from fear, but from an instinctive recognition of presence. He'd just returned from overseeing the final details of his newest philanthropic venture, a tech training center in the South Side that would provide free coding classes to underserved communities. The meeting had run longer than expected, and now he was waiting for his driver to bring the Rolls-Royce Phantom around front. In the meantime, he'd been casually scrolling through photos on his phone, reviewing shots of the new center's interior that his project manager had sent earlier. That's when he heard the commotion near the lobby entrance. A young woman, mid-20s, dressed in a simple yellow sundress and worn sandals, was arguing with the hotel security guard. Her natural hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she carried a canvas tote bag that had seen better days. She looked out of place in this temple of wealth, like a sunflower growing through concrete. "I'm telling you, I work here," she insisted, her voice rising with frustration. "I've been working in the kitchen for 3 months. My shift starts in 10 minutes. The security guard, a middle-aged man with a permanent scowl, crossed his arms. "I've never seen you before, and you're trying to enter through the main lobby. Staff entrance is around back. The back door is broken. Maintenance was supposed to fix it yesterday." She fumbled in her bag, searching for something. "I have my employee badge right here." Darius watched the interaction with mild interest, his eyes drawn to the young woman's determination despite her obvious disadvantage. There was something in her posture, a refusal to be diminished, that reminded him of his younger self, back when he'd been fighting his way up from nothing. The woman finally produced a laminated badge, but the security guard barely glanced at it. "Could be fake. I'll need to call the kitchen manager to verify. I'll be late for my shift." "Not my problem." Darius found himself moving toward them before he'd consciously decided to intervene. It was the protective instinct that had served him well in business and in life. The inability to watch someone struggle when he had the power to help. But then his phone buzzed in his hand. A text from his daughter. "Dad, did you get the photos I sent of the twins? They miss their grandpa." He paused, swiping to his photo gallery to scroll back through recent images. The security guard was now on his radio, speaking in low tones while the young woman stood there, visibly anxious, checking an old flip phone for the time. That's when everything exploded. "Excuse me?" The young woman's voice cut through the lobby like a whip. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Darius looked up, startled. She was staring directly at him, her eyes blazing with indignation. "I'm sorry?" he said, genuinely confused. "Your phone!" She marched toward him, her sandals slapping against the marble. "You were just taking pictures of me. I saw you." The lobby fell silent. Several guests turned to watch. The security guard's hand moved instinctively to his belt radio. "I assure you, miss, I was not. I saw your phone pointed at me. You were taking sneaky photos." Her voice trembled with a mixture of anger and something else, fear, perhaps, or the exhaustion of someone who'd been disrespected one too many times. Just because I'm poor doesn't mean you can treat me like some kind of spectacle for your entertainment. Darius kept his voice calm, though he could feel eyes on him from every corner of the lobby. I understand how it might have appeared, but I was looking at family photos on my phone. I was not taking pictures of you or anyone else in this lobby. Then prove it, she shot back. Show me your camera roll. The security guard was now approaching, his hand extended toward the young woman. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. It's fine, Darius said, holding up a hand. He turned his attention fully to the woman, meeting her eyes with the same steady gaze he used in boardrooms. If it will resolve this situation, I'm happy to show you my recent photos. He unlocked his phone and opened his camera roll, then held it out to her. For a moment, she hesitated, as if she hadn't expected him to comply so readily. Then she snatched the phone from his hand and began scrolling. Darius watched her expression shift from righteous anger to confusion, then to something softer embarrassment, perhaps mixed with disbelief. She scrolled slowly through the images. The tech center interior shots. A photo of a sunrise over Lake Michigan he'd taken that morning from his penthouse. Several pictures of his twin grandchildren in Halloween costumes, architectural drawings, a screenshot of a news article about his foundation's work. No pictures of her, no pictures of anyone in the lobby. She looked up at him, her jaw tight. I saw your phone pointed at me. You saw me looking at my phone, Darius corrected gently. Which happened to be in your general direction because you were standing near the desk where I've been waiting. I apologize if the angle created a misunderstanding. The young woman's hands trembled slightly as she held his phone. Around them, the lobby had become a theater, with at least a dozen people watching the drama unfold. She looked suddenly small, vulnerable, aware that she'd just accused one of the city's most prominent businessmen of something he clearly hadn't done. She started, but the words seemed to stick in her throat. The security guard seized the moment. All right, that's enough. You need to leave, now, before I call the police. Wait, Darius said, his voice carrying that particular tone of authority that made even aggressive security guards pause. I'd like to know your name. Miss. She looked at him warily, still holding his phone. Why? Because you work here, apparently, and I own this hotel. The blood drained from her face. Her name was Savannah Brooks, and she'd been working as a prep cook at the Grandeur for exactly 93 days, a fact she recited with the precision of someone who counted every paycheck like a lifeline. After Darius had confirmed her employment with a single phone call to the kitchen manager, he'd also ensured that the security guard received a firm reminder about treating all hotel staff with respect, regardless of which entrance they used. Savannah had apologized 3 times, each apology more mortified than the last, before hurrying off to her shift. Darius had watched her go, noting the weight she seemed to carry in her shoulders, the quick, efficient way she moved like someone used to making themselves small. He'd intended to forget about the encounter. He had dinner reservations at Alinea with a group of investors, followed by a charity gala at the Field Museum. His calendar was, as always, meticulously packed with the obligations of a man who'd built an empire and now spent his wealth trying to redistribute it to those who needed it most. But something about Savannah Brooks lingered in his mind. 3 days later, he found himself reviewing employee files in his private office on the hotel's top floor, something he rarely did personally. His executive team handled HR matters, but he'd asked his assistant to pull Savannah's file, telling himself it was just due diligence, making sure they were treating their kitchen staff fairly. The file was thin. No previous hospitality experience, a high school diploma from a school on the South Side, an address in Englewood, one of the toughest neighborhoods in Chicago. Emergency contact, none listed. Previous employment, a series of retail jobs, none lasting more than a year. What struck him most was the reference letter from her last employer, a small grocery store. Savannah is one of the hardest workers I've ever had the privilege to employ. She's reliable, honest, and goes above and beyond in everything she does. Unfortunately, we had to close due to financial difficulties. She deserves an opportunity to thrive. Darius leaned back in his leather chair, the late afternoon sun painting his office in shades of amber. Through the window, Chicago sprawled beneath him, a city of stark contrasts where luxury penthouses cast shadows on crumbling neighborhoods. His phone buzzed. A text from his goddaughter, Naomi, who ran the youth mentorship program at his foundation. Reminder: we need a keynote speaker for the Young Women's Leadership Breakfast next month. Someone real. Someone who's overcome stuff. Got any ideas? He stared at the message, then at Savannah's file on his desk. Before he could second-guess himself, he called down to the kitchen. "This is Darius Monroe. Is Savannah Brooks working today?" "Yes, sir," came the manager's voice. "She's here until 9. When she's finished with her shift, please ask if she'd be willing to come up to my office. Tell her it's not a reprimand, I'd like to discuss an opportunity." "Of course, Mr. Monroe." He hung up and immediately wondered if he'd made a mistake. Something about this felt different from his usual philanthropic work. More personal, more complicated. At 9:17 p.m., there was a knock on his office door. Savannah stood in the doorway, still in her kitchen whites, her hair now covered with a disposable cap. She looked exhausted, and underneath the fluorescent lighting of the hallway, he could see the bags under her eyes, the way her uniform hung slightly loose on her frame. "Mr. Monroe," she said quietly, "they said you wanted to see me? Please, come in. And you can take off that cap, you're off the clock." She entered hesitantly, pulling off the cap and tucking it into her pocket. Her eyes swept across the office, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the original artwork, the view of the Chicago skyline beginning to glitter with evening lights. "I'm not in trouble?" she asked, and he heard the Oklahoma twang in her voice, the hint of somewhere else she'd come from. "Not at all. Please, sit." He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. "Would you like some water? Coffee?" "I'm fine, thank you." She sat on the edge of the chair, her posture rigid with anxiety. Darius moved from behind his desk to the chair beside her, a deliberate choice to make the conversation less formal. "I want to apologize," he began, and her eyes widened in surprise. "For the situation the other day, you were right to be concerned about your privacy, and you were brave to speak up, even when you thought you were at a disadvantage. I was wrong, though," she said quietly. "You weren't taking pictures. You were protecting yourself. There's no shame in that." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I looked at your employment file." Her expression shifted immediately, walls going up. "Am I being fired?" "Quite the opposite. I wanted to offer you something." He leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Savannah, what do you want to do with your life? What's your dream?" She blinked, clearly not expecting the question. For a long moment, she just stared at him, and he could see her mind working, trying to figure out the angle, the catch. "Why do you want to know?" she finally asked. "Because I've spent 40 years building businesses and making money, and I've learned that the best investment isn't in stock markets or real estate. It's in people who have the drive but lack the opportunity." He kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. "So I'm asking, what would you do if money and circumstances weren't obstacles?" Savannah's throat worked as she swallowed. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I'd go to culinary school. You like to cook. I love to cook. It's the only thing I've ever loved." The words tumbled out, raw and honest. "When I was a kid in Oklahoma, my grandma taught me. She had this tiny kitchen in her trailer, but she could make magic happen there. She'd say, 'Baby girl, food is love made visible.' She died when I was 16, and She stopped, pulling herself back. "Sorry. You don't need my life story." I asked, didn't I? Darius smiled, the kind of warm, genuine smile that had made him beloved in Chicago's black community and beyond. "Here's what I'm thinking. The Grandeur partners with the Culinary Institute here in Chicago. We provide internships, scholarships, that sort of thing. I'd like to sponsor your education there." Savannah's eyes went wide. "What? Full tuition, plus a stipend for living expenses while you study. In exchange, you'd commit to working in one of my restaurants for 2 years after graduation at a proper salary, as a trained chef, not as a prep cook. She was shaking her head before he finished. No, no, I can't. Why not? Because nothing is free. There's always... She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. What do you actually want from me? The question hung in the air, sharp and suspicious. Darius remained seated, his expression unchanged, giving her space for her fear. I want you to have the same chance I had, he said quietly. 45 years ago, a man named Theodore Wright saw potential in a kid from the projects who had nothing but ambition and anger. He gave me my first real job, taught me about business, and never asked for anything except that I work hard and pay it forward someday. So that's what I'm doing. Paying it forward. People don't just give away opportunities like that. Some people don't. I do. It's literally my job. He gestured to the framed photos on his credenza, ribbon cuttings, scholarship ceremonies, community centers bearing his foundation's name. Last year alone, my foundation provided 237 full-ride college scholarships to young people from underserved communities. You'd be number 38 this year. It's not charity, Savannah. It's investment. She stood there, trembling slightly, and he could see the war happening inside her, the desire to believe him, fighting against years of disappointment and broken promises. Why me specifically? She asked. You don't even know me. Because you had the courage to call out what you thought was wrong, even when you were outmatched. Because your reference letter from that grocery store told me you're the kind of person who shows up and does the work. And because, he paused, his voice softening, because 45 years ago I was you. Broke, suspicious, certain the world was designed to knock me down, and someone took a chance anyway. Savannah sank back into the chair, her hands covering her face. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you get back up and try again. That's how success works. She laughed, a sound somewhere between hope and disbelief. This is insane. Most good things are. Darius stood and extended his hand. What do you say, Miss Brooks? Are you ready to bet on yourself? She stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and shook it. Okay, she whispered. Okay. If you're already hooked, just wait, because the real story is about to begin, and trust me, you're not ready for what comes next. 6 weeks later, Darius stood in the back of the community room at the Westside Youth Center, watching Savannah lead a cooking demonstration for a group of teenagers from the neighborhood. She'd volunteered to do it as part of the foundation's programming, even though she was juggling the start of her culinary school classes with her reduced hours at the hotel. She'd transformed since that night in his office. There was a light in her eyes now, an energy that came from purpose. She laughed as she showed a teenage boy how to properly dice an onion, her hands moving with practiced efficiency while she explained the technique. The key is keeping your fingers curled like this, see? That way the knife can't catch you even if it slips. Naomi stood beside Darius, arms crossed, a knowing smile on her face. You're staring, she said quietly. I'm observing, he corrected. There's a difference. Mm-hmm. That's what we're calling it now? He cut his eyes at his goddaughter, who simply grinned back at him. Naomi had known him her entire life. She was his late best friend's daughter, the closest thing he had to family, besides his own daughter who lived in New York. She had an unsettling ability to read him. It's not like that, he said. Sure it's not. You've just happened to show up to 3 different events where she was volunteering in the past month. Totally coincidental. I attend many foundation events. You attend the fancy galas and ribbon cuttings, not the Tuesday afternoon cooking workshops for at-risk teens. Naomi bumped his shoulder with hers. I'm not judging, Uncle D. I'm just saying. Maybe be careful. Careful of what? Of the optics. Of the power dynamic. Of... She paused, choosing her words. Of your own heart. You've been alone since Auntie passed 5 years ago. I know you miss having someone to share things with. Darius was quiet for a moment, watching Savannah laugh at something one of the kids said. She reminds me of myself at that age. That's all. If you say so. Naomi squeezed his arm. I've got to run meeting with the mayor's office about the new rec center. You staying? For a bit. After Naomi left, Darius found himself moving closer to the demonstration area. One of the teens noticed him first, a young girl with pink braids who'd been in the Foundation's mentorship program for 2 years. Mr. Monroe, she called out. You gonna cook with us? Savannah's head snapped up. Their eyes met across the room, and he saw surprise flash across her face, followed by something else he couldn't quite read. I'm a terrible cook, he admitted, approaching the group, but I'm an excellent taste tester. The teenagers laughed. And Savannah smiled, though it seemed slightly guarded. We're making pan-seared salmon with a honey-lemon glaze, she explained. These guys are naturals. For the next hour, Darius watched Savannah work with the kind of patience and genuine care that couldn't be faked. She praised their efforts, gently corrected their mistakes, and somehow made each kid feel capable and valued. When a boy accidentally splashed hot oil on his hand, she was there immediately with ice and reassurance, turning a moment of panic into a teaching opportunity about kitchen safety. As the workshop wound down and the teens devoured their creations, Savannah began cleaning up the demonstration station. Darius found himself helping without being asked, rinsing mixing bowls at the industrial sink. You don't have to do that, Savannah said, appearing beside him with an armload of utensils. I've got it. Many hands make light work, he replied, a phrase his mother used to say. Besides, I've been watching you do all the heavy lifting for the past 2 hours. Least I can do is wash some dishes. They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes, the sounds of the teenagers' chatter and laughter filling the room behind them. This was good of you, Darius said finally. Volunteering your time when you're already stretched thin with school and work. Savannah shrugged, scrubbing at a stubborn bit of caramelized honey on a pan. These kids don't have a lot of people showing them they matter. I know what that feels like. If I can give them a couple hours of feeling capable and seen, it's worth it. You're a natural teacher. I just remember what it's like to be them. She glanced at him, then away. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why do you keep showing up? To these events, I mean. Don't you have, I don't know, billionaire things to do? He smiled at the bluntness. Would you believe me if I said I like to see how my foundation's programs are actually working? That's the PR answer. You're right, it is. He set down the bowl he'd been rinsing and turned to face her fully. The truth? I've been in boardrooms and galas and fancy restaurants my entire adult life. They all start to feel the same after a while. But this, he gestured to the room, this feels real. It reminds me why I do what I do. Savannah studied him with those sharp, assessing eyes. And it has nothing to do with keeping tabs on your investment in me? I trust you to succeed or fail on your own merit. I don't need to supervise. Then what is it? The question was direct, almost challenging. And Darius realized he didn't have a good answer, or rather, he had an answer he wasn't ready to examine too closely. Maybe I like seeing someone grab hold of an opportunity with both hands, he said carefully. It's inspiring. Inspiring, she repeated, and there was something in her tone he couldn't read. Right. Before he could respond, one of the youth center staff members called Savannah over to help load equipment into storage. She dried her hands and walked away, leaving Darius standing at the sink with the unsettling feeling that he'd just failed some kind of test he hadn't known he was taking. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Darius was in his penthouse preparing for an evening meeting when his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but the area code was local. He almost let it go to voicemail. He'd learned long ago that answering unknown numbers often meant dealing with someone who wanted something from him. But something made him pick up. Hello? Mr. Monroe? The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. This is Detective Lisa Tremaine with the Chicago Police Department. I'm calling about Savannah Brooks. His chest tightened. What happened? Is she all right? She's physically unharmed, but she's currently at the 11th District Station. She's been arrested. The world seemed to tilt slightly. Arrested? For what? Theft. She was caught shoplifting from a luxury boutique in the Gold Coast. The store is pressing charges. Given the value of the items over $3,000, it's a felony. Darius sank onto the arm of his couch, his mind racing. There has to be some mistake. The store has video footage, sir, and she had the items in her possession when security detained her. Look, I'm only calling because she had your business card in her wallet and asked if we could contact you. She says you're her sponsor? I wasn't sure what that meant, but I wanted to give you a heads up before this hits the press. I'll be there in 20 minutes, sir. Unless you're her lawyer. I'll bring her lawyer with me. He hung up and immediately called his attorney, then his driver. While he waited for the Rolls-Royce to pull up to his building, he stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the Chicago skyline and trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. Theft. Savannah. It didn't fit. Nothing about it fit with the woman he'd come to know, hard-working, proud, almost aggressive in her independence. She'd barely accepted his scholarship offer, let alone stolen anything. But the detective had said there was video footage. The drive to the police station felt eternal. His attorney, Jeremiah Collins, sat beside him in the back seat, already reviewing what he knew about retail theft laws in Illinois on his tablet. If the value is over $300, it's a felony, Jeremiah said quietly. She could be looking at 1 to 3 years if convicted. She didn't do it, Darius said flatly. With all due respect, Darius, you don't actually know that. I know her. Jeremiah gave him a long look. Do you? You've known her for 2 months. Darius didn't respond. Because the truth was, Jeremiah was right. He didn't know Savannah, not really. He knew what she'd chosen to show him, knew the surface story. But people were complex, and desperation could make anyone do things out of character. Still, his gut said this was wrong. At the station, it took another 20 minutes of bureaucratic delays before they were allowed to see Savannah. She sat in an interview room, still wearing her culinary school uniform, white chef's coat, black pants. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her face blotchy from crying. When she saw Darius walk in behind the attorney, her expression crumpled. I didn't do it, she said immediately, her voice breaking. I swear to God, Mr. Monroe, I didn't steal anything. Darius pulled out a chair and sat across from her while Jeremiah remained standing, already taking notes. Tell me what happened. Start from the beginning. Savannah took a shaky breath. I was at school all morning. We had a practical exam. After class, around 1 o'clock, I was walking to the train station to head to my shift at the hotel. I cut through the Gold Coast because it's faster. And? Jeremiah prompted. And I was walking past this boutique Maison Elegante, I think it's called, and this woman came running out after me. She was screaming that I'd stolen from her store. Before I could even process what was happening, security grabbed me and dragged me back inside. Did you go into the store at any point? Darius asked. No, I swear. I've never even been in that store. I can't afford to window shop in places like that. But they found items in your possession, Jeremiah said, his tone neutral but probing. 3 designer handbags worth over $3,000 total. They were in your school backpack. Savannah's hands clenched into fists on the table. I don't know how they got there. I went to school this morning with my textbooks and my chef's knife kit. That's it. Someone must have. I don't know. Planted them? Jeremiah and Darius exchanged a glance. It sounded far-fetched, the kind of excuse guilty people made, but Savannah's distress seemed genuine, and Darius had spent decades reading people in high-stakes negotiations. The store has security footage, Jeremiah said gently. They're claiming it shows you entering the store, taking items, and concealing them in your bag. Then show me the footage, because I'm telling you, it's not me. We will, Darius assured her. Jeremiah is going to handle your representation. We'll get you out on bond, and we'll fight this. Tears spilled down Savannah's cheeks. "You believe me?" He reached across the table and covered her hand with his, a gesture that felt both natural and strangely intimate. "I believe we need to see all the evidence before making judgments. But yes, Savannah, I believe you." She nodded, unable to speak, and Darius felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just about protecting an investment anymore. This was personal in ways he hadn't anticipated. And that's when he realized Naomi had been right to warn him about his own heart. Want to know what happens when everything you think you know gets turned upside down? Stay with us, the truth is about to get wild. The security footage arrived at Jeremiah's office the next morning, and Darius canceled 3 meetings to be there when they reviewed it. Savannah sat in one of the leather chairs, her leg bouncing with nervous energy, while Jeremiah queued up the video on his large monitor. "This is from yesterday, 12:43 p.m., Jeremiah narrated as the grainy footage began to play. The camera showed the interior of Maison Elegante, a boutique that dripped with the kind of understated luxury that only the truly wealthy recognized. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, handbags displayed like artwork on illuminated pedestals. A figure entered the frame. Female, wearing a white chef's coat and black pants, dark hair pulled back. She moved through the store with purpose, glancing around as if checking for employees. Then she approached a display, picked up 3 handbags quickly, efficiently, and tucked them into a backpack before exiting the frame. The timestamp read 12:47 p.m. "That's not me," Savannah said immediately, leaning forward. Wait," Darius said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Play it again, Jeremiah. Slower this time." Jeremiah restarted the footage, this time at half speed. Darius watched intently, and as the figure turned toward the camera, he saw what he'd missed the first time. "Her face," he said quietly. "You can't actually see her face." It was true. The camera angle captured the woman from the side and back, but never straight on. The hair was similar to Savannah's length and color, the uniform identical, but the face remained obscured, either turned away or shadowed. "That's convenient," Savannah said, her voice tight. "Almost like whoever it was knew where the cameras were." Jeremiah made a note. "The question is, who would want to frame you? I don't have enemies." Savannah's voice rose with frustration. "I work, I go to school, I keep my head down. I don't have the kind of life where people are out to get me." But even as she said it, Darius saw uncertainty flicker across her face. "What?" he asked immediately. "What are you thinking?" Savannah bit her lip, clearly reluctant. "There's this woman in my class at culinary school, Tiffany Hargrove. She's been difficult." "Difficult? How?" "She's rich. Like, trust fund rich. Her dad owns a restaurant chain. She's only at the institute because he wants her to understand the business from the ground up, or whatever." Savannah's fingers twisted together. "She found out about your scholarship, and she's been making comments. Calling me a charity case, saying I only got in because of who I know, not because of talent." "That's motive for animosity," Jeremiah said, writing quickly. "But is it motive for felony-level frame job? I don't know. But last week, I left my backpack in my locker during class, we all do, because you can't have bags in the kitchen for sanitation reasons. When I came back, my locker was open. I thought I'd just forgotten to lock it, but now—" She trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. Darius leaned back in his chair, his mind working through the angles. "Jeremiah, I want you to pull everything you can on this Tiffany Hargrove. Financial records, any previous legal issues, everything. And I want someone to review all the security footage from that boutique for the past month, see if our suspect has been in there before, casing the place." "Already on it," Jeremiah said. "I've also filed a motion to challenge the evidence. If we can prove the person in the video isn't Savannah, the charges should be dropped." "How long will that take?" Savannah asked. "Could be weeks, could be months. These things move slowly." Jeremiah's expression was kind but honest. "In the meantime, you're out on bond, but there are conditions. You can't leave the state, and you have to check in regularly with your bond officer." Savannah nodded, but Darius could see the weight settling on her shoulders. An accusation like this, even if ultimately disproven, could derail everything she'd been building. "What about school?" she asked quietly. "Can I still attend classes?" "Technically, yes," Jeremiah said. "But you might want to consider—" "No," Savannah said firmly. "I'm not dropping out. I've worked too hard to get here." Darius felt a surge of respect for her resolve. "You won't be fighting this alone," he assured her. "Whatever you need, legal support, character witnesses, resources, you have my full backing." She met his eyes, and for a long moment they just looked at each other. There was gratitude there, yes, but also something more complex, a connection that went beyond philanthropy and mentorship. Jeremiah cleared his throat diplomatically. "I'll give you two some privacy. Savannah, I'll be in touch as soon as I have more information." After the attorney left, the office felt suddenly smaller, more intimate. Savannah stood and walked to the window, hugging herself as she gazed out at the city. "This is going to be all over the news, isn't it?" she said quietly. "Black girl from the South Side accused of stealing designer handbags. They're going to make me into a stereotype. Not if I have anything to say about it." Darius moved to stand beside her. "And for what it's worth, I know the owner of the Tribune. I can make some calls. Ensure the coverage is fair. That's using your influence to manipulate the press. That's using my influence to prevent character assassination of an innocent person. There's a difference." She turned to face him, and he saw tears threatening to spill again. "Why are you doing this? The scholarship was one thing, but this? You're risking your reputation by associating with me right now. My reputation can handle it, but why risk it at all?" Her voice broke. "You barely know me, and now I'm this liability. You could just cut your losses. Let me deal with this on my own." Darius reached out and gently tilted her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. It was a gesture more intimate than anything they'd shared before, and he felt her sharp intake of breath. "Because that's not who I am," he said softly. "And because I see you, Savannah. Not the circumstance, not the accusation. You. And what I see is someone worth fighting for." The air between them crackled with unspoken emotion. Savannah's eyes searched his face, and he could see her trying to understand this man who'd entered her life like a force of nature and refused to walk away even when things got complicated. "I can't," she started, then stopped, seeming to rethink her words. "This isn't appropriate. You're my sponsor. There's a power dynamic here that makes this, whatever this is, really complicated." "You're right," Darius acknowledged, letting his hand fall away even though part of him wanted to keep that connection. "And I would never want you to feel obligated or uncomfortable, but I also won't pretend I haven't come to care about what happens to you. As a person, Savannah, not just as a scholarship recipient." She nodded slowly, processing. "I care too," she whispered. "And that scares me." "Me too." They stood there for another moment, the weight of confession hanging between them. Then Savannah stepped back, putting necessary distance between them. "I should go," she said. "I have to figure out how I'm going to face everyone at school tomorrow." "With your head high," Darius said firmly. "You've done nothing wrong. Don't you dare apologize for someone else's crime." She managed a small smile. "Yes, sir." As she gathered her things to leave, Darius had to resist the urge to pull her into his arms and promise that everything would be okay. But he'd learned long ago that some battles had to be fought by the people most affected. And the best thing he could do was stand beside them. Not in front of them. "Savannah?" he called as she reached the door. She turned back. "Yeah? Thank you. For what?" "For trusting me." Her smile was sad but genuine. "Thank you for being trustworthy." The next 3 weeks were a study in controlled chaos. True to his word, Darius pulled every string he had to keep the media coverage balanced. When the story initially broke culinary student accused of designer theft, he made strategic calls to journalists he trusted, ensuring they had access to character references from Savannah's professors, employers, and the teens she'd volunteered with. By the time the second wave of articles came out, the narrative had shifted from troubled girl from the wrong side of town to promising student possibly framed. Meanwhile, Jeremiah's investigator, a sharp woman named Valerie Sims, had been doing a deep dive into Tiffany Hargrove's background. What she found was damning. Darius sat in Jeremiah's office again, this time with Savannah and Detective Tremaine present, as Valerie presented her findings. Tiffany Hargrove has a history, Valerie began, pulling up documents on her laptop and mirroring them to the large screen. 3 incidents at previous schools, 2 in high school, 1 at a community college she briefly attended before enrolling at the Culinary Institute. All 3 incidents involved conflicts with scholarship students or students of color. What kind of conflicts? Detective Tremaine asked, leaning forward. At her private high school in Wilmette, she accused a black scholarship student of stealing her jewelry. The girl was suspended pending investigation. Turns out, Tiffany had misplaced the jewelry in her own gym locker and found it 3 weeks later, after the other girl had already transferred schools due to the social fallout. Savannah inhaled sharply. At the community college, Valerie continued, she claimed a Latina student had plagiarized her work. The accusation was investigated and dismissed, but not before the other student dropped out due to stress and harassment. And you're saying this is a pattern, Darius said, his voice tight with controlled anger. It's a pattern. More than that, I pulled Maison Elegante's customer database. Guess who's a regular customer there? Frequently purchases multiple handbags at a time and has a personal relationship with the store manager. Tiffany Hargrove, Savannah breathed. Bingo. I also obtained security footage from the Culinary Institute for the day in question. Want to see something interesting? Valerie queued up another video. This footage showed the school's locker room. Timestamp: 11:52 a.m. before Savannah's class had ended. A figure entered wearing a hooded jacket and quickly approached Savannah's locker. Even with the hood up, certain features were visible: lighter skin tone, different build, designer sneakers. The figure used a key someone had made. A copy opened Savannah's locker, stuffed something into her backpack, and left. The entire exchange took less than 90 seconds. I cross-referenced this with the boutique footage, Valerie said. The gait, the body language, even the shoes they match. It's the same person. So Tiffany stole from a store where she's a regular customer, Detective Tremaine said slowly, working through it. Planted the evidence in Savannah's bag, then had someone at the boutique notice the theft and identify Savannah? The store manager is the boutique owner's daughter, Valerie added. She and Tiffany went to high school together, childhood friends. The room fell silent as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment prank. It was calculated, malicious, and disturbingly elaborate. That's conspiracy to commit fraud, false imprisonment, and filing a false police report, Jeremiah said, already making notes. Among other charges. Detective Tremaine stood, her expression grim. I'll need all of this documentation. We'll be opening an investigation into both Hargrove and the boutique manager. What about Savannah's charges? Darius asked. Given this evidence, I'd say they'll be dropped within 48 hours. The detective turned to Savannah. Miss Brooks, I owe you an apology. We should have been more thorough in our initial investigation. Savannah nodded, looking shell-shocked. Is this really happening? It's happening, Valerie confirmed with a satisfied smile. And thanks to Mr. Monroe's resources, we had the capacity to investigate properly. Most public defenders wouldn't have had the time or budget to dig this deep. After the detective and Valerie left to coordinate with the DA's office, Savannah sank into a chair, her hands shaking. I can't believe she hated me that much, she said quietly. I never did anything to her except, what? Exist? Work hard? Darius crouched beside her chair. Her hatred had nothing to do with you and everything to do with her own insecurity. People who are secure in themselves don't need to tear others down. She tried to ruin my life. She tried. She failed. He took her hands in his. Because you have people in your corner who believe in you, and because the truth always finds a way to surface. Savannah looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. I don't know how to thank you. You saved me. You saved yourself by being someone worth saving, he corrected. I just provided resources. The character, the strength, the grace you showed through all of this, that was all you. She laughed, a sound between relief and exhaustion. I wasn't always graceful. I cried a lot. Crying is allowed. You were being attacked. The fact that you showed up to school every day, kept your head up, and didn't let them break you, that takes more strength than most people ever have to show. Impulsively, Savannah leaned forward and hugged him. For a moment, Darius froze, surprised. Then his arms came around her, holding her gently while she trembled against him. Thank you, she whispered into his shoulder. Thank you, thank you, thank you. He held her, breathing in the faint scent of her shampoo, feeling the rapid beat of her heart against his chest. And in that moment, Darius acknowledged something he'd been carefully not thinking about for weeks. He was falling in love with her. You thought that was the end? Oh no, this is where things get truly emotional. Stay with me for what comes next. The charges against Savannah were formally dropped 72 hours later. Tiffany Hargrove and the boutique manager were both arrested, with additional charges pending as the DA's investigation uncovered evidence of insurance fraud involving other staged thefts. The Culinary Institute issued a public apology to Savannah and expelled Tiffany immediately. It should have been a pure victory, but Savannah found herself in Darius's penthouse 3 days after her exoneration, feeling more conflicted than she'd felt in her entire life. I don't understand why you invited me here, she said, standing near his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago's glittering nightscape. The view was breathtaking, the kind of view that seemed unreal, like something from a movie. Darius approached with 2 glasses of wine, offering her one. Because we need to talk, and I wanted to do it somewhere private. She accepted the glass, but didn't drink. About what? About what happens now. He moved to stand beside her at the window, close but not touching. Your name has been cleared. You're back in school with a clean record. The scholarship continues, along with all the opportunities that come with it. I know. And I'm grateful. But, he prompted gently, but I can't stop thinking about what you said that day in Jeremiah's office. About caring, about seeing me as more than just a scholarship recipient. She finally turned to face him. Was that real? Or was it just something you said to make me feel better during a crisis? Darius set his wine glass down on a nearby table and gave her his full attention. It was real. It is real. But I also understand if that complicates things in a way that makes you uncomfortable. It does complicate things. She gripped her wine glass tighter. You're 25 years older than me. You're a billionaire. You're the reason I have any opportunity at all. And she stopped, struggling with the words. I can't tell if what I feel for you is gratitude or something else. And that terrifies me. I understand, Darius said quietly. And the last thing I want is for you to feel obligated to me in any way beyond the scholarship agreement. That's not what I mean. The words burst out of her. I'm not afraid you'll pressure me or expect something. I'm afraid that I'm developing feelings that are real, and I don't know if I can trust them. My whole life, I've had to be suspicious of people's motives. I've had to protect myself. And then you show up, and you're kind and generous and protective, and my brain keeps telling me it's too good to be true. But your heart? Darius asked. She met his eyes. My heart is an idiot, he laughed, a warm, genuine sound that filled the massive space. Hearts usually are. They feel what they feel, regardless of logic or timing or age differences or power dynamics. So what do? We're honest with each other. Darius stepped closer, and she felt her breath catch. I'll be honest first. I'm attracted to you, not because you're young, or because you need help, or any other problematic reason. I'm attracted to your strength, your resilience, your passion for what you love. I'm attracted to the way you refuse to let circumstances define you. I'm attracted to who you are, Savannah. She swallowed hard. I'm attracted to you too. To your kindness. To the way you use your power to lift people up instead of pushing them down. To the way you really listen when I talk. She stopped, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. To everything about you, honestly. So we're both idiots, Darius said with a smile. Apparently. She finally took a sip of wine, needing something to do with her hands. But that doesn't solve the problem. People will talk. They'll say, you're taking advantage of me, or that I'm using you, or, let them talk, Darius interrupted gently. I've spent 40 years building my reputation. It can withstand gossip. The question isn't what other people think. The question is, what do you want? I want. Savannah stopped, forcing herself to be brave. I want to see where this could go, but I'm scared. Of what? Of getting my heart broken. Of this not being real. Of waking up one day and realizing the only reason you were interested was because of the power dynamic, or the savior complex. Or, Darius reached out and cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. Let me tell you something. 5 years ago, my wife died. Cancer. We'd been together for 35 years. After she passed, I threw myself into work and philanthropy, because it was easier than feeling the loss. I've dated casually since then, women my age, women who understood my world and felt nothing, not one spark. He paused, his eyes intense on hers. Then a young woman accused me of taking sneaky photos in a hotel lobby, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt awake. You woke something in me I thought had died with my wife. That's not savior complex or power dynamics. That's connection. That's chemistry. That's two people recognizing something in each other that feels rare and worth protecting. Tears spilled down Savannah's cheeks. What if I'm not ready? What if I need time to figure out who I am outside of survival mode before I can be in a relationship? Then we take time, Darius said simply. There's no rush. I'm not going anywhere. The scholarship continues regardless of what happens between us personally. I need you to believe that. If you want to finish school, build your career, and figure yourself out first, I will wait. And if you figure yourself out and decide I'm not what you want, I'll accept that too. And if I want to try now, even though it's scary and complicated, he smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Then we try, carefully, honestly, with open communication and mutual respect. We take it slow. We keep it private while you finish school, so there's no appearance of impropriety. And we give each other permission to walk away if it stops feeling right. Savannah set down her wine glass and stepped fully into his space. Can I kiss you? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought you'd never ask. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, like they were both afraid of breaking something precious. His lips were soft against hers, his hands steady on her waist. She could feel his heart beating against her palm where she'd pressed her hand to his chest. When they pulled apart, Savannah was smiling through her tears. Okay, she said. Okay? Okay, let's try. Slowly. Carefully. But let's try. Darius pulled her into his arms, holding her close. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Savannah felt safe. Not because someone was solving her problems or rescuing her from danger, but because someone really saw her and chose to stay anyway. 6 months later, Savannah stood in the kitchen of Darius's flagship restaurant, Meridian, putting the finishing touches on her final practical exam. The restaurant was closed for the day to accommodate the Culinary Institute's testing, but Darius had pulled strings to make it available. She'd completed a 5-course tasting menu from scratch: butternut squash soup with brown butter and sage, pan-seared scallops with corn puree, duck breast with cherry gastrique, herb-crusted lamb with rosemary potatoes, and chocolate soufflé with vanilla bean ice cream. Each dish represented months of learning, practice, and late nights studying. As she plated the final dessert, she caught sight of Darius in the dining room through the kitchen window. He'd insisted on being one of the guest judges for her exam, along with her instructors and several prominent Chicago chefs. He wore his signature white suit, though no hat today, and was deep in conversation with her primary instructor. Their relationship had remained private, just as they'd agreed. At school, she was simply Savannah Brooks, scholarship student. In public, he was Mr. Monroe, her sponsor and mentor. But in private moments, quiet dinners in his penthouse, weekend drives along the lakeshore in his vintage Mercedes, late-night phone calls when she was stressed about exams, they were simply Darius and Savannah, two people learning how to build something real. It wasn't always easy. There were moments when the age difference felt vast, when their different life experiences created gaps in understanding. There were times when she felt insecure about what she could possibly offer someone who had everything, and times when he worried he was inadvertently controlling or overshadowing her growth. But they talked through it all. Honestly, sometimes painfully, but always with the goal of understanding each other better. "Miss Brooks," one of the exam proctors called, "your dishes are ready for service?" "Yes, chef." She watched as servers carried her plates to the dining room. Through the window, she saw Darius taste her butternut squash soup. His eyes closed briefly, and a small smile played at his lips. Pride swelled in her chest. The evaluation took 2 hours. Each dish was critiqued thoroughly. Presentation, technique, flavor balance, creativity. Her instructors were tough but fair, pointing out areas for improvement while acknowledging her growth over the past months. When it was finally over and the scores were tallied, her primary instructor, Chef Bernard, approached her with a rare smile. "Congratulations, Miss Brooks. You've passed with distinction, highest score in your class." Relief and joy flooded through her. She'd done it. On her own merit, with her own skills and determination, the scholarship had opened the door, but she'd walked through it herself. After the other judges left, Darius remained. He approached her in the kitchen, where she was cleaning her station, still wearing her chef's whites. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. "You didn't influence the scores, did you?" she asked, half joking. "I couldn't if I wanted to. The Institute's evaluation process is sealed and anonymous. This was all you, Savannah." He reached out and tucked a stray curl behind her ear. "Though I will say, that duck was transcendent," she grinned. "Yeah? Yeah. You have a gift." He paused, then reached into his jacket pocket. "Actually, I wanted to give you something." He pulled out an envelope, not fancy, just plain white paper. She took it, curious, and opened it carefully. Inside was a check, made out to Savannah Brooks, for $250,000. She stared at it, uncomprehending. "I don't understand." "It's your inheritance," Darius said gently. "From your grandmother." "My grandmother? But she died years ago, and she didn't have anything. She had you. And apparently, she had a life insurance policy she'd been paying into since you were born. When she died, the policy was supposed to go to you, but it got lost in bureaucratic red tape because you were a minor and moved around a lot after her death." Savannah's hands trembled as she held the check. "How did you?" "I have people who are good at finding lost things. I had them looking into your background for character witnesses during the trial situation, and they stumbled across the unclaimed policy. It took months to sort through the legal process, but it's yours now. Money your grandmother set aside specifically so you'd have opportunities she never had." Tears blurred her vision. She bought life insurance even though she could barely afford groceries. She loved you. She wanted you to have choices. Darius squeezed her shoulder. "This money is yours to do with as you please. You could open your own restaurant, or save it, or travel the world learning from different culinary traditions. Whatever you want." Savannah looked down at the check, overwhelmed. $250,000! It wasn't Darius's wealth, but it was enough to give her security, options, freedom. It changed everything, and suddenly, something clicked into place. With this money, she wasn't a poor girl being rescued anymore. She had her own foundation to build from. She looked up at Darius. I know what I want to do. Yeah, I want to open a restaurant. But not a fancy one. A place in my old neighborhood where people can get good food at prices they can afford. A place that hires people like I was, people who need a chance. And she paused, the idea fully forming. And I want to start a scholarship fund for kids from neighborhoods like Englewood who want to go to culinary school but can't afford it. Darius's smile was brilliant. That's a beautiful dream. It's a dream I can actually build now, because of my grandmother and because of what you taught me about using resources to lift others up. She set the check down carefully and moved into his arms. Thank you for finding this, for believing in me, for everything. He held her close, and she felt the steady beat of his heart against her ear. You would have made it with or without me, Savannah. You're that talented and that determined, maybe. But it would have taken a lot longer, and it would have been a lot lonelier. She pulled back to look at him. I love you. I know we said we'd take it slow, and I know it's complicated, but I do. I love you. I love you too, Darius said, and kissed her forehead. And we'll take whatever speed feels right. There's no rush. We have time. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about love, second chances, and the beauty of human connection. Drop a comment telling me what you thought, and if you want to see what happens next in Darius and Savannah's journey, let me know. Because their story? It's only just beginning. 2 years later, Savannah's restaurant, Grandma's Table, opened to a line that wrapped around the block. The space was warm and welcoming, with exposed brick walls, mismatched vintage chairs, and the constant aroma of food made with love. The menu featured elevated soul food recipes passed down through generations, executed with the technical precision she'd learned at the Institute. Darius stood in the back of the dining room during the grand opening, watching Savannah work the room with the same grace she'd brought to everything she did. She greeted guests, thanked her staff, and beamed with pride at the dream she'd built with her own hands and her grandmother's love. They'd gone public with their relationship 6 months earlier, after she'd graduated and established herself professionally. As expected, there had been gossip, judgment, and plenty of people with opinions about their age gap and how they'd met. But there had also been overwhelming support from the communities they both served, from people who saw their relationship for what it was: genuine, respectful, and built on mutual admiration. Naomi appeared beside him, champagne glass in hand. You did good, Uncle D. She did good, he corrected. I just got out of her way. You gave her the chance to show what she could do. That's not nothing. Naomi clinked her glass against his. And for what it's worth, I was wrong to worry. You two are good for each other? Thank you. That means a lot. They watched as Savannah made her way to the small stage they'd set up for speeches. The restaurant quieted as she took the microphone. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began, her voice strong and clear. This restaurant exists because of a lot of people. My grandmother, who taught me that food is love made visible. My instructors at the Culinary Institute, who taught me that technique matters as much as passion. My staff, who took a chance on a new restaurant run by someone who'd never done this before. She paused, her eyes finding Darius in the crowd. And someone who taught me that accepting help isn't weakness, that second chances exist, and that sometimes the best thing you can do is believe in someone until they remember how to believe in themselves. The crowd applauded, and Darius felt his chest tighten with emotion. But mostly, Savannah continued, this restaurant exists because I was given a chance when I desperately needed one. So I'm announcing tonight that 10% of Grandma's Table's profits will go directly into a scholarship fund for culinary students from underserved communities. Because everyone deserves the chance to pursue their dreams, and everyone deserves someone in their corner believing in them. The applause was thunderous. Darius watched her glow under the attention. No longer the scared young woman in the yellow sundress who'd accused him of taking photos. She'd become who she was always meant to be, a force of nature in her own right. Later that night, after the last guest had left and the staff had gone home, Darius and Savannah sat alone in the restaurant's dining room, sharing a bottle of wine and a plate of her famous bourbon pecan pie. "You know what's funny?" Savannah said, leaning against his shoulder. "If that security guard had let me in through the front door that day, we might never have met." "I prefer to think we would have met eventually," Darius said. "The universe has a way of bringing people together when they need each other. You believe in fate now. I believe in paying attention to the moments that matter." He kissed the top of her head. "And I believe in you." She smiled up at him. "I believe in us." And in that moment, sitting in the restaurant she'd built with love and determination, surrounded by the aroma of her grandmother's recipes and the possibility of everything still to come, Savannah knew she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not because someone had rescued her, but because she'd rescued herself with help from someone who'd taught her that accepting love and support didn't make you weak, it made you human. And being human, with all its complications and beauty and unexpected joy, was the greatest gift of all.